के भीतरी गांव की बात है तो मैं आश्चर्य में रह जाता हूँ कि उन्हें यह पता नहीं है कि वो मंदिर है भी क्या, लेकिन वे इस नारे को लगा रहे हैं। तो जैसे रेगिस्तान धीरे धीरे बढ़ता है, वैसे विंध्य के इधर का भारत जो है वो केरल में भी बढ़ता है और डिब्रूगढ़ में भी बढ़ता है और लखीमपुर में भी बढ़ता है, और ये बहुत बड़ा खतरा है। बहरहाल प्रोफेसर निवेदिता मेनन।
थैंक यू। टुकड़े टुकड़े ज्ञान के एक टुकड़े से आप सबको सलाम। क्योंकि किताब अंग्रेज़ी में है, मैं अपने कमेंट्स अंग्रेज़ी में ही दूँगी। This book is an excellent bringing together of the key themes of the Hindutva project and of Hindu Rashtra. It brings together all the elements of Hindu Rashtra to reveal what India has become in 5 years, in 5 short years. I don't think any of us who mourned the victory of Modi, and I will not call him Modi ji. I don't understand why only he is referred to as Modi ji. केजरीवाल केजरीवाल है, राहुल तो राहुल है, और मोदी जी क्यों? ये मुझे समझ में नहीं आया अभी तक। So when Modi became Prime Minister of this unfortunate country in 2014, and we mourned that victory, I don't think any of us in this room, or any of us indeed, thought it would be so bad so quickly. We knew things were going to be bad, but we didn't think that the devastation would be so quick and so deep. Now, what Ashutosh has done in this book is he has unfolded in each chapter one key theme. And as you read the chapter, you realize that he takes each theme and then he exposes it, both in terms of its being fundamentally undemocratic. But what I also got from the book, really, quite unlike the way, for example, in which Apurvanand spoke just now, somewhat pessimistically, what I actually find through Ashutosh's book is it reinforces my sense that this is a fundamentally unsustainable project, Hindu Rashtra. And I think that's the sense that I get from the way Ashutosh writes about it. So if you look at the themes he's picked up, each chapter is on one theme: cow protection, the very fraught relationship of Hindutva politics to Dalits, the rewriting of history, Kashmir, Hindutva terror, the subversion of legal systems, the buying out of the media. So you can actually see he's pretty much covered almost every theme that one would want to understand about Hindu Rashtra. But what I actually also found interesting is it's a hair-raising read. It reads like a political thriller, considering that you're living it. But there is no moment that you feel when you're reading it that, हाँ ये तो मैं जानती हूँ. You actually end up reading it like a political thriller. So congratulations, it's beautifully written, and congratulations to Westland for the production. If you look at the cover is a brilliant illustration by Arijit Sen, and it's a really beautifully produced book. Now, what I would like to do is, rather than talk directly about the book now, drawing on the book, I'll share with you where my thoughts went when I read the book. And it seems to me that there are 3 ways in which the Hindutva project appears to have changed. I don't know if Ashutosh would agree, and in a way this is my question to him as the author of this book. There is 3 ways in which Hindutva politics has shifted between NDA 1 and the Modi regime. So the first point, and on this there doesn't appear to be that much of a focus in your book, Ashutosh, which has to do with the very direct, unhindered project of corporate takeover of the country's resources, large-scale privatization and corporate takeover of the country's resources. Now, under NDA 1, we actually saw some tension between elements of RSS and the government. So, for example, the Swadeshi Jagran Manch, the BMS, the trade union of the RSS, they were openly against privatization and corporate globalization. They marched with left trade unions. BMS marched with left trade unions on the streets opposing this. And there were some real tensions between economic nationalism and neoliberal strands of Hindutva. So Hindutva as economic nationalism, Hindutva as neoliberal. There were some real tensions. But what we see, I think, under the Modi regime in the second phase, that Modi was so explicitly and powerfully backed by the corporate lobby. There was no doubt there could have been no doubt in anyone's mind or the RSS's mind that this was a corporate backed government. And the regime has been completely brazen about selling India's resources, about public sector units, about destroying India's network of public universities. In JNU, we are facing one part of it, but every university in the country has been affected by this. And you also find the brazenness of this regime in selling us to corporates. When you look for, I'll give you just one recent example, the ordinance that was passed after the Supreme Court judgment on Aadhaar. And the ordinance was passed to ensure that mobile companies and banks can continue to insist on Aadhaar. It's supposedly voluntary, but can continue to take your Aadhaar details, although the Supreme Court said it's not warranted. When is an ordinance passed? When something is so urgent that it cannot, because that bill would have lapsed. That bill was being actually opposed, and it would have lapsed. But you urgently pass an ordinance before the next election, because this is about data mining. This is about selling data to corporations. This is how brazen they are. After arguing in the Supreme Court that Aadhaar is necessary for social welfare, the first thing they do is pass an ordinance selling our data to mobile companies and to private banks. So it's as brazen as that. Now, even when it came to demonetization, we find that RSS fell in line. Not only did RSS fall in line, there was actually quite a lot of talk at that time about the connection, deep connection between Paytm and RSS. And again, this is about data mining. So what we actually find is that, so this is the first way, the first shift that I see in the way in which the RSS, the Hindutva project has shifted from economic nationalism to cultural Hindutva and complete surrender to corporate multinational capital as well as Indian capital. So there's been this shift, and I wonder if you've thought about that. The second shift that I see is the complete break and the complete expulsion of Dalits from Hindu Rashtra. Apurvanand talked about Muslims, I think, or Asutosh, I think it was Asutosh who said that Muslims are no longer even considered, worthy of engaging with by Hindu Rashtra, but Dalits too. So if you remember, in the NDA regime, in the first one, there was a way in which Dalits and Adivasis were being drawn into the Hindutva project, and they were being used in communal violence against Muslims. But in this phase, you actually see the Modi regime has a very clear upper caste terror. Upper caste terrorism is what marks the Modi regime. So if you see the way in which there was this huge attack on a young woman who had a placard called Smash Brahminical Patriarchy, and that poster was given to the Twitter person. It was, there was a poster. So it was handed over to I can't remember the company's name. And so there was a huge uproar that Brahmins are being insulted and so on. This kind of crass upper caste terror, which is so upfront and in your face, you see that in this second phase of the Modi, of Hindutva. So you find that there's a kind of upper caste aggression, open and widespread violence against Dalits. Partly this violence against Dalits is linked, of course, to the way in which, in this phase, we see a very militant anti-Hindutva Dalit politics emerging. From Rohit Vemula to Mewani to of course, Chandrasekhar Azad, there's a very militant anti-Hindutva Dalit politics that has emerged. And so obviously that is one reason why Dalits are being attacked and being pushed out of the idea of Hindu Rashtra. But the other reason, let's face it, is the complete inability of Hinduism to do without hatred of Dalits. That is the basis of Hinduism. Caste discrimination and caste oppression is at the heart of Hinduism. Ambedkar said it correctly. Hinduism cannot survive if it does not have caste discrimination and caste oppression. And you actually see the visceral hatred of the Dalit emerging when Dalits are attacked for riding a horse to a shadi, or let alone, of course, temple entry. And you find that some elements of the VHP and the RSS are trying to say, no, they are part of Hindu Rashtra because you have to build a consolidated Hindu Rashtra after all. And that was Savarkar's project. So in many ways, Savarkar actually, in Essentials of Hindutva, which, you'll find that Savarkar speaks in a very modernist, almost scientific way against caste. Because his project was to consolidate the Hindu community, militarize the Hindu community against the minorities. But it seems that Hindu Rashtra, and this is what I meant by saying it's unsustainable, this visceral hatred of Dalits, it takes over even the dream of a proper Hindu Rashtra. It seems to me that the proper Hindu Rashtra, which should have consolidated Hindus, they can't do it because the venom of the upper caste in Hinduism is just so great. Of course, we do see some Dalit alliances still with the Hindu right. For example, recently we would have noticed Dalit Panthers. Of course, there's an older history. They tied up with Shiv Sena, but by and large, it's very clear that Dalit politics is out of Hindu Rashtra. And finally, we see a shift. I think most of us have noticed it. We expected many more Gujarat 2002s. Paul Brass calls this the institutionalized system of riot production. Because they're not communal riots, they don't happen spontaneously. They are planned in advance, and Paul Brass, this social scientist, has actually studied the way in which RSS sets up these riots, what roles everybody has. It's an institutionalized system of riot production. But we actually find that that has been less, not that there hasn't been communal violence, but what we actually see is more the lynching, the widespread lynching of individuals. And so there's this shift. Ziaul Salam has also written about this, I think, yesterday or today, that there's a shift in the landscape from violence against minorities on a large scale to kind of everyday, at the everyday level. Now, what I'm wondering about this, again, I'm a very glass half full kind of person as opposed to half empty. And I'm actually wondering, is this because
जैसा हम कहते हैं आपके मुंह में घी शक्कर